All right, hey, welcome everybody. We got a bunch of people here today from all over the campus. We've got some awesome stuff for you. The Science of Learning, a crash course in what works, and that's exactly what this is a very quick crash course in things you can start using tomorrow that cost you no money and very little time. So a lot of this is borrowed from some great books that we're going to look at and preview, and also a couple of custom ideas that I built after I learned it myself. So you're going to get to see a bunch of good stuff, and we'll have you guys jump in at any time to ask questions and engage. So let's do it. So the Science of Learning crash course, we'll do our welcome here and some background. Then I'll give you the big idea. We got 3 key terms for today. Then you get your 6 strategies that you now can use immediately, and then start to improvise and customize them to fit your context. And then we have a bank of time at the end to ask anything you want to at all, anything. But please recommend and jump in, suggestions, ask questions at any time. Each time I present a strategy, I'll give you an example, and then we're going to think about sharing ways we see we could use those strategies. So there's a moment per strategy for us to jump in and engage, okay? All right, so we got some background for you that's important. Over the last 10 years, learning centers across the nation at universities have been inundated with really, really good books on how learning happens and the best ways we know from cognitive science that it actually works best. So let's take a look at our timeline here. So in 2014, this outstanding book comes out called Make It Stick. And this is we have book studies here at MTSU on this book. It is an incredible, career-changing book if you want to teach really well and actually get kids to, I say kids, I teach a lot of K-12, but if you want to get students to remember it beyond. And then our medical kicks in. And so 2014, we've got 2016 where James Lang comes out with Small Teaching, where what are the absolute basic moves that help students learn. Now, Small Teaching just came out with a 2nd edition. I found that out today. It's an outstanding book. 2018, Josh Eiler, this guy is the lead at the Learning Center, Faculty Learning Center at Ole Miss now. He's kind of a national speaker based on his book. And then finally, the most recent is called Powerful Teaching by this awesome duo who is a university professor and cognitive scientist, along with a middle school teacher. They paired up to write this. They've been a partner team for like 15 years now. All of these books are outstanding, and guess what? They are actually written, or they hired an English major to write it up, the actual cognitive science. That's what's great about it. You read these and they're so smooth, like narrativistic. But I will say, shout out to the English department. A lot of these people hired out an English person to make them, move from research study to actual narrative. So there it is. There's a great focus on our history of how these books have come to campuses across the nation. And guess what? Our big focus is going to be on this last one, Powerful Teaching. Okay, so let's give you the big idea for Powerful Teaching. This book here, we have one crucial idea. They say that we have spent way too much time getting information into kids' heads, and we're not spending near enough time getting it out. If that's not like a mind melter right out of the gate for our thing today, right? We have to just invert our thinking. We do, of course, need to impart knowledge, but we have to start spending more time getting it out of the kids' heads. And you do that through these 6 strategies we're going to give you here just in a minute. Because what we know about learning is often intuitive and often wrong. So one of my favorite memes I use for my classes is that the sensation of just studying and restudying and cramming all night, it feels like it works. It works for about a day, and then you remember very little of it. So we have to take this and invert this and give you strategies that make it stick for the long haul. That's what we're all about here today. 6 strategies that work, okay? We pumped up so far on Zoom? Yeah, all right, let's do it. 6 strategies. Let's get you your key terms so the 6 strategies make sense on why you even want to do them, okay? So there's 3 big terms we need to know. We're going to define them very clearly for you from Powerful Teaching. The first one is called retrieval practice. Like, what does that mean, right? It literally means activities and exercises that get stuff out of people's heads, okay? And the actual definition is as follows. So take a look at that. So through constant quizzing and getting stuff out, they'll remember it for longer. That's what retrieval practice is. You're going to get so many strategies on how to use it today. There's nothing wrong with lectures. There's nothing wrong with that at all, except we want to spend a great deal of time getting that lecture back out of their head, okay? So that's the term retrieval practice that's just hot right now across the nation at universities. Our second term is called spaced practice. You know, at school, the key to remembering is actually allowing for a little bit of forgetting. Isn't that strange? The cognitive research is absolutely 100% clear. If you would dabble with new content, step away from it for a little bit, and then quiz yourself, you'll remember it for longer. And in fact, the struggle to remember and then checking yourself, you'll remember it for longer. There's the actual definition for spaced practice. So now you're thinking, oh, wait a minute, how do I build this into my weekly schedule? So I've got a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Oh, wait a minute, I do Monday nights only, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So how do I space it out? Spacing is good. It's the key to the longevity of learning, to the durability of learning, to make sure they keep it for the long haul. Our final term is called interleaving. This is the gold standard of actual learning for real. It's when you mix up content and skills and knowledge to see if they can really connect and keep it. That's the key. That's the tip top of learning. Okay, and this is the definition. One of the best examples of this is called Saxon math. If you remember the 90s, Saxon math was huge. And it worked because he was actually an engineer, and his own kids, he was frustrated they weren't, moving through, and he started teaching math actually, and nobody was remembering anything because the textbook is a linear march through math. And then when you mix up the problems on the test, they can't do it. He said, why are we not just mixing up the content inside the chapters? And he came up with Saxon math. And you keep more math for longer if you mix it up. So imagine a fourth grader's sheet that has a few word problems and then a few number lines and then a few times table questions, right? That's how you mix it up. And you can do that for anything, any content at all, but math is a quick example there. So those are your three key terms. We're going to make sure we get to use those and make those happen through the 6 strategies we're going to borrow for today, okay? So any questions so far before we get you to your list of strategies? We'll pause and see if you got any questions. I'm so pumped about this right now. I can't wait to give you these strategies. All right, so here they are. The first is called 2 things. We're going to give you the whole list, and I'm going to go one by one and give you examples. The next one is called the brain dump, or as little 8th graders call it, the brain barf. They like to use that word, which you can see. That's fine. They like to make little cute names for it. The next one is called Too Long Didn't Read. If you're on Twitter, you ever see that? Too Long Didn't Read. That is one of that. I came up with that one, so shout out to me. Thank you. You're welcome. Yes. And then flip it and reverse it. Put my game down, flip it and reverse it. You remember that? That's right. The Weekly Mixup. And then there's one more called the 4 Steps of Metacognition. These are the ones you're going to get today, and you're going to be able to use them immediately, okay? They cost no money. They cost very little time. They're completely customizable to what you need, okay? The no-brainer nature of these strategies is almost like frustrating. You're like, dude, why didn't I do this before? Why did I, right? And it's almost like an affront to your teaching career. You're like, what? This is so easy. And they're going to get more, they're going to remember more stuff. I told them, yes, exactly. And then finally, you'll have the chance to start combining and mixing, improvising so that you can fast track students to better, faster learning and mastery, okay? That's what we want. We want them to know and do better and learn more stuff, and this is how they do it, okay? So our 6 strategies, we're going to start off with the 2 things. All right, here we go. You ready? Whoop, whoop, let's do it. All right, this is the most simple thing you can think of. Okay, check it out. Here's the example. Write down 2 things you remember from the unit on biomes. So if we're teaching biomes, guess what? We taught biomes 2 weeks ago. You walk into class and you say, all right, let's do it, guys. 2 things you remember about biomes. And they write it down on their note card, or they write it down in their notepad. They put it on their phone. They put it into a Kahoot online. They put it up onto a Padlet, or they put it onto the pinup board or a Google Jamboard. It's so simple. Immediately they walk in and boom, 2 things. And guess what? What would you do next? Oh, you have them pair up and share up. That's right. What two things did they recall as opposed to their peer? Then you're walking around the room, checking to see what they're not remembering so that you can fill in the gaps, and checking to see what they are remembering. And they're helping each other retrieve at the same time, okay? So let's pause right here and talk about the ridiculous simplicity of the two things and maybe how you think you might be able to use it, okay? So jump on the mic there if you want to share something about that, okay? Or put it in the chat. This is called your teacher wait time, which is brutal. It's like a bad stand-up comic. You're like, hey, folks doing tonight? All right, tell you what, I'm going to follow up here and show you an even further way to use it. Oh, we do have a chat. Let's do it. Instant engagement, guys. Exactly. Instant engagement. You do this online for sure. Like I said, with online, you have a lot of options. You can go with, like I said, pinup board. You can go with Mentimeter. You can do Poll Anywhere. You can do Google Jamboard and Google Forms. All those tech tools will let you do this very same thing online. Okay, promise. Piece of cake. And it'll give you instant data, and it'll show you bar graphs, pie charts, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to use. So that's a great idea. Yeah. How do we parlay this over for instant engagement and do it online? You can totally do it through that big list, and I can actually get you that list of tech tools at the end. I'll type it all into the chat. Okay, perfect. Thank you for sharing that. That's really great. All right. Let me tell you about how we can follow up even further, okay? So how about they pair up, share up, then they pair up, and then they square up, okay? So that same pair then turns and finds another pair. Then you can deepen that retrieval and see what you can glean from the groups of four now. You have to decide how to make this work. Do you want to just have them retrieve the two and then be done with it? You want to have them pair up and then stop, or you want to have them pair up, then square up? You can decide. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do after they retrieve to have them double down on their learning and then fill in gaps, okay? So the two things is so flexible and it's so easy to do. And we can do this at the beginning of a class. In the middle of the learning, you actually can stop your lesson and say, all right, guys, two things you remember so far about quantum, whatever, make a cool science word up that's really complicated that I'm not familiar with, okay? Stop it in the middle of the learning, guys. Think you got one of those 85-minute Tuesday, Thursday classes? You stop right in the middle and say, what are you keeping so far about today's topic? Have them pair up, square up. And then, of course, the power of that exit moment, they can do it then as well. So the two things is about getting stuff you told them out of their head more often. How about that? Now, here's the last question. Do you take this up? It depends. You can take it up, that's fine. You can not take it up. Sometimes you don't even want to see it. It's just the mere act of retrieval that was helpful. And sometimes you do take it up. But really what we're getting at here is this notion of low stakes or no stakes testing. And that comes from the next book that's really hot in higher ed right now, which is called Ungrading. So a lot of this is done in our classes for 0 points. It's actually for no credit. But once you start building that culture of how much this is going to help your learning, they do it for no points. They get excited about being able to show how much they know this next time and can retrieve. And if you have to put some points on it, just make sure it's low enough to keep it low stakes. Okay. Strategy one. Any questions or, oh, I see how I could use this. You tell me that, and then we'll follow up with strategy two. Okay, in online courses, you could attach an award rather than points. You could totally go with your badge system or whatever system you're using. That's awesome. And you can start having students leveling up almost like gamers. You know what I mean? And they take a pride in the idea that they did better next time. All of this is about accumulating knowledge over time, guys. Over time. That's what we're about. I'm building more knowledge over time without the fear and anxiety of being tested all the time, even though I'm being tested every class. Every class I'm being tested, and guess what? It's quick and it's informative for both you and them, okay? Thank you for that comment there. Index cards are outstanding. We have an example of how we use an index card system coming up at the end, so thank you for that on our award-winning teacher, Kim Sadler. Thank you. All right, let's go to strategy two. Here we go, the brain dump, all right? Another boneheaded, simple, like, wow, why didn't I think of this, okay? All right, here you go, strategy two. Write down everything you can remember about the Russian Revolution. I'm not saying you should do that now. I'm just saying that's the example because I don't really know much about that. Let's say you're teaching that. Write down everything you remember, not two things. I'm talking about everything. Everything you can remember. Pick your content knowledge piece and insert it into that sentence, right? So you can do this in a 2-minute drill. Guys, I'm putting 2 minutes on the clock. Everything you can remember about a Russian Revolution and go. And guess what? It's for it's low or no stakes. So everyone's just now trying to remember for the sake of continuing that learning. How about we pivot it? How about we then afterward we pair up, share up again? You see how that works? A little bit like two things, but it's a little bit deeper, but you still can pair up and share up. The next one, you could actually pivot this to an extended writing piece. Have them do it for the first 10 minutes of class. It's like, you'll be surprised, they'll actually write longer because they get used to retrieving so much information. If you keep a habit of mind like this, and you'll have to actually stop them and say, guys, we got to stop. We got today's content, you know. So you can give them an extended writing chance. You have to customize that however you see fit, time spent. It could be 2 minutes, it could be 10 minutes. You could actually go longer if you've got the case for it, if you make the case for it, right? And then guess what? After they do the extended writing, then they square up to follow up again. Then you start walking around to see what they are and aren't remembering, and you can act immediately to fill in the gaps or to double down and confirm how much they did retrieve that was important. So the brain dump is about get your whole head, uncork it onto the table, onto the notepad to prove it to me that you're remembering for the long term. Strategy 2, brain dump. All right, let's go back to our crowd. Anything you can see, connections, a way to use this one? Right. Now, here's the way you can do a challenge task. So if they start getting good at this, you need to start messing with them, okay? You need to start challenging them to go to the next level, all right? So here's the brain dump challenge task. So they're getting used to it, they're getting good at it, but wait a minute, I'm gonna up the ante, not in a scary way for points, but in a learning way. Ooh, let's see if you can do it. They start leaning forward, right? What patterns, connections can you see to other revolutions? Now that they've done their retrieval, see if they can then make patterns and connections to other items that you may have studied in the past or in another class. So you just fade these in and have them see those timeline differences. You've got one, and then a few years later you get another, and then a little bit, more than a little bit later, you get a long time later, you get another one. And seeing if those things are connected at all. Do they share a spine, if you will, or are they certain sort of unique signatures of each revolution? Then you can say, okay, now what's the next revolution in our time, right? So they're primed and ready to go deeper now because they've done the retrieval. Okay, all right, the brain dump. All right, strategy 3, here we go. This is called Too Long Didn't Read. And this is straight out of the Twitter sphere, which is the cesspool of social media and yelling at each other and everything, but there's some good stuff. There's some good stuff, all right? So too long didn't read. Here you go. Strategy number 3. This is the prompt we give to our doctoral students over in the College of Ed. Select one book from our program, the ALSI program you've read. So start with that. Pick one in your head. Summarize the book from memory using only 240 characters, the length of a tweet. So our doctoral students have to reach back 2-3 semesters from a book that we said was important, and they got to summarize it, and they only get a tweet to do it. Yeah, that's right. That's the challenge task. I need you to do it. And in the struggle to remember, you will remember it for longer. So what I do is I have them Google the phrase character counter, and that's going to pop up a lot of options, but that's usually the first one that pops up. And it's going to allow them to key in on their phone. It's going to track the counter, the character counter, so that they can't go over. They always want to go over, and I say no. You got to winnow it down to the big ideas, the big takeaways. Then we take these and we just pop them up on the D2L discussion board. We put them on the pinup board, all those tech tools we used earlier. I'm doing those in face-to-face and online class. It doesn't really matter. But we need to see a way to have them share. Obviously, they could pair up, share up. They could square up. So really what we're doing here is we're summarizing entire books that we said was important way back, but we're going to keep them for long haul because we did this retrieval on them. Okay. But can you see how to do this if it's not a book? What would you do? Let's say we don't want to do whole books because I can't get the kids to read whole books. Let's just say that's true, right? What else could you do? You could pivot this strategy, improvise with me here on how you could use too long didn't read for not a whole book, something different. Okay, tell me that. So how about we do TLDR as Tara says for academic articles? So it's like a 6-page article. I get 240 characters. How about book chapters, guys? Look, you're already there, man. You guys have already, you're running with it already. Too long, didn't read, but you did read it, in fact. In fact, you did read it and you remember it so well that you crunched that 6-page article or that 14-page chapter into 240 characters. That's not a lot of space. And again, they start getting good at this. You'll be so impressed with what they remember versus you're moving from one unit, one chapter to the next, and they don't remember it. And you get mad. You're like, why is it not sticking? Because we haven't done enough retrieving. So we've got book chapters, articles, case studies. Guys, if you're doing like business class, yeah, give me everything you remember about the whatever case study. And they have to retrieve it because it was important. It was important to know then, and it's important to know now. This is a great way to keep it. TED Talks, guys, the list is anything you're trying to get into their head, you can have them TLDR it. Okay? All 6 strategies are only doing one thing, getting information out of their heads. That's all we're trying to do here. And when you start to get good at this, one week it's a TLDR, the next week it's a 2 things. The week after that, it's a brain dump, right? All they're going to be doing is getting constantly quizzed in a cumulative way for low or no stakes. They're going to remember more stuff for longer. So here's the challenge task for TLDR. Okay, it's technically an extra strategy, but you can kind of bundle it up here. How about TLDR? They're getting too good at it. It's getting too easy. How about this? 6-word book summaries. 6-word book summaries. All the students, they hate this. They hate this. They're like, how could that possibly? Yeah, they can do it. Once they practice, they can do it. Here's an example. So remember that book, Make It Stick? Yeah, I'll give you that book in 6 words. You guys ready? Okay, here it is. Space, vary, and interleave to learn. That is the entire book. Now, other people's 6 words would be different, but I promise you they'll be in the orbit of those 6 words. And if they're not, then they really can't remember quite well. You just recalibrate them and remind them of what that book really was all about. So all they're trying to do and Make It Stick is teach you how to space out your practice, vary it or mix it up, and then interleave related content to force you to make connections. That's the big idea of that entire book in 6 words. So now you're looking at 6-word book chapter summary, 6-word TED Talk summary. Okay. So there's a little bit of a pivot or improvisation on the strategy. That's what you're going to have to do when you take it back to your classroom is improvise on top of these. Okay. So we'll pause there. We've got 3 strategies. Any questions so far? Any kind of additions throw out to the group? Crowdsourcing, how you think you could help? Thanks for the shout out there in the chat. Anything else before we go to the next one? All right. Now I do have a challenge for you, okay? We just did 3 strategies. Is there anybody willing to jump on the mic and see if they can retrieve without looking the 3 strategies that we've done so far? You can't look though. You got to retrieve. Anybody want to try it out? You got 3 strategies. See if you can even put it in the chat. Can you remember the 3 strategies so far? Without looking. The whole point is to not look. And then when you struggle to remember, then you look. Brain dump, TLDR. Yeah, there's 2 out of 3. That's right. What was the first one? Anybody remember the very first one? 2 things. There it is. Boom. We got it. Nice. So we did 2 things. Then we did brain dump and then TLDR. That's right. Excellent. Okay. Well, let's go to the next one. This is called flip it and reverse it. Okay. This is real simple stuff right here, guys. But it's sort of a mind melter, as I said, because you're having to invert your thinking. So here, we want teachers to do this. We're going to flip our thinking, okay? Just invert your thinking. We need to start assigning tasks and homework on what students learned last week. Okay, not today, not this week. That's what your homework and tasks should be about. Flip it backward a week, 2 weeks, that kind of stuff. This is what's going to help them literally tow the learning from one unit to the next, one set of projects to the next. Okay. At the same time, we want to get parents and peers, okay, to flip their thinking. So I know that our students probably aren't engaging with their parents, but they might be with their peers. So parents and peers, have them ask not what they learned today, but what they learned yesterday. So when we get at the dinner table, my girls, we've started doing this. We say, what'd you learn yesterday? And they are just like short-circuited because they have to think back to yesterday, which basically didn't exist in those fourth and third grade minds. But we actually just shifted that language just a little bit, and they're remembering more for longer. Okay. So what'd you learn yesterday? This is also a self-quiz. Have your students quiz themselves. Okay, what did I learn yesterday in that other set of classes? I'm in these classes today. What did I learn yesterday? And you don't look. It's the trying to remember that makes you remember it for longer. It's so strange. And then you confirm with your page or your notes or your index cards. Okay. And then finally, teachers, once again, for flip it and reverse it strategy, we want to stop reviewing. We have to stop reviewing and start retrieving. I am a master of recapping classes at the beginning of the next class. I love it. I craft these like beautiful, oh, this connected to that. Guys, I'm doing all the work, man. I'm doing all the retrieving for them. It's not going to be as effective as if they do the retrieving. Now I'm going to give you a quote from Powerful Teaching that is outstanding and why and how you should do it a different way and flip your thinking, okay? So take a look at that quote. That really changed the game for me. I have stopped recapping because I read this book. And I have to admit that it kind of bummed me out because I thought I was doing so well by crafting these it took me a long time actually to craft these really neat recaps that bridges the class to the next class. And they need to be doing the bridging is the honest truth. And I have had to learn that actually over the summer. So I'm unlearning that as a strategy. Now, my recap is waiting for them after they retrieve though, to make sure that they did retrieve the right things. I just need to stop starting with my recaps. Okay. It's just simple, flip it and reverse your thinking. Okay. Any comments on this one or strategies you want to help us with, throw out to the crowd, or just any kind of comments at all for flip it and reverse it? Ways you could use it or just aha moments. Yeah, that is tough. That is tough. So really what I find is that over time, when they start seeing that this is just, okay, let me rephrase because maybe everybody didn't see the chat. So it says, how do you incentivize students if they do not respond, which is a totally real question, right? I think that when you start off the class selling the idea of how important this is and why you're doing it, and it happens like every day, a lot more folks get on board, okay? And if there are folks that won't get on board, you could go to the low stakes, which it does count for points. It does count for a percentage of the grade. It's perhaps your retrieval quizzes are in fact 10%, right? 10%. So that's low enough to matter, but not too high to freak anybody out, right? And perhaps every third retrieval quiz, you could drop a grade or something like that, because the point is about cumulative knowledge and you getting to build that knowledge. So I do see students that they don't respond, and what are you going to do about it, right? The last thing I'll say is that some students aren't going to respond no matter what you did, right? So you got to be careful on building things around the folks who weren't going to do anything anyway, right? So the retrieval practices are going to help everybody. If that one person doesn't do it, don't let them don't do it. That's just on them and say, look, whenever you're ready to join the retrieval ride, come on in, So that's a little quick answer there. The next comment is, how do we steer students away from dependence on study guides? Or could we call something that facilitates retrieval a study guide? Yeah, we actually call it retrieval practice. We don't do quizzes anymore. We use that word specifically. And I think that one of the big takeaways from Powerful Teaching is they claim that you should teach the students about how they learn. you have to inform them that study guides aren't as effective, that in fact, cramming is only the sensation of knowing. It is the illusion of knowing. You won't remember it 48 hours from now. In fact, if we go this other way, you'll remember it for longer. And I will tell you what, there are studies done that students actually say, even when they prove they've learned more, they say they would prefer it the other way. They said, I would prefer to cram. I would prefer to just go over my notes again, or in fact, reread the whole book again, which is so inefficient. So the feeling that this stuff is somehow going to be better than what I know works is actually a huge blockade to getting this done. Because how many times have we seen students actually, jump through the hoops of school by cramming and then letting it go? They've actually been quite successful in not learning it for real, which is very frustrating. We've got a transcript that has it certified that they do know it and they don't. And that is very, very worrisome. You think about AP US history, you get a 5 on AP US history, and then you don't remember the 3 branches of government like 3 years later. That's a bad thing, man. That's like a democracy crumbling in front of your eyes type of thing. So, yeah, I would move away from study guides. One of my favorite examples from Make It Stick is actually a guy who was training to be a lead in a Shakespearean play. And he wanted to be so good and remember it so well that he actually printed out his script, but deleted all of his parts. So every time he would read the other people's parts and he would have to retrieve every word himself. And then when he couldn't get it, he would flip over and show himself the reveal. And he ended up remembering for much longer and with complete automaticity. And he was able to perform well. And that's actually really hard, though. It's much easier just to review notes than to retrieve. That's the bottom line, right? It's harder it just hurts. Your head hurts. You're like, what was the big 3 ideas of this researcher? It's easier just to look at the card that's already printed up for you. But it doesn't work as well and for long, okay? So good questions for sure. Any other questions before we jump on to our last strategies? Okay, awesome. Okay, so flip it and reverse it, real easy. Just invert your thinking and stop recapping. Have them start recapping. This is the 5th one called the Weekly Mixup, okay? This is a constant quizzing every week of stuff you're learning now, stuff you learned last week, and stuff you might have learned last semester in a different class, but a class that was foundational to yours. This is an example of what it looks like. Notice that we actually call it retrieval practice in our doctoral program. This is actually a brief handwritten quiz, takes about 5 minutes, that's mixing 2 classes together, 2 semesters together, okay? You don't need to be able to know those terms or anything. But that first one is a belief about learning that we make them memorize. The second is all they have to do is circle what we call the Hall of Famers, the big wigs in the field. And then at the end, they just have to retrieve the big 3 ideas of a professional learning community. And then guess what? They pair up, square up, we're done. That's it. So it's stuff we're learning now, stuff we learned a little bit ago, and the stuff we learned way back that you're not supposed to forget. It's called the Weekly Mix-Up. Now, the Powerful Teaching authors call it a Weekly Mix-Up because they really do it every week. They do it on Fridays. Every Friday, we're going to mix it up so that you learn, and you learn it for real. All right? So that one's pretty easy, right? I mean, hey, let's just quiz them on what we're doing now, a little bit ago, and then way back. Okay, so let's pause right there for any kind of comments or questions on the mix-up. You're doing it for low or no stakes. They're towing learning from week to week, month to month. In our case, we have students for 2.5 years of coursework. We have to do this. We have to make sure when they graduate and become a doctorate in education that they know it for real. We're protecting our brand. We're ensuring that they can really do this dance. The very last one is called, well, we're going to recap down the list, but I want to show you how to combine the last 2 together. That's the final thing we'll do today, okay? So we have our 2 things. Our brain dump, too long didn't read, flip it and reverse it, the weekly mix-up, and I'm going to show you how to combine it with the 4 steps of metacognition. This is straight out of the book, Powerful Teaching. I wish that I'd come up with this, okay? So we're going to combine these last 2 together. 4 steps of metacognition goes like this. Okay, it's very easy. The students, once they get used to it, they won't even blink. Okay, when you take a test, a low stakes test or quiz now that we do in low stakes, no stakes retrieval, you're going to do these steps. The students are going to do it first by looking at their quiz, looking at their quiz paper. They're going to star if they know it, and they're going to question mark if they don't know it. That's the first thing they do. They're going to actually not take the test. They're going to mark, denote, I got it, or oh, not sure. This is a self-regulation, self-evaluation tool, metacognition. Okay. Automatically, though, we're also sending signals about how learning happens in our classroom, aren't we? Can anybody tell me what kind of vibe I'm putting out when I tell them to take their test this way? I'm inviting them to star it and then also to question mark it. What am I saying to my students about learning? How it happens. Be honest about where you are. That's what Kim said. Be honest about where you are, because guess what? My job is to help you know more stuff. So if you tell me where you are, I can help you bridge that gap. That's right. This is a matter of self-investment. Here I am. I'm gauging where I'm learning. As Jennifer says, here's where I am. And then you can set goals about where I want to be. This is how you get people motivated, as we talked about earlier. This is the accountability piece, right? It's a great accountability piece. And if it's low stakes or no stakes, they're doing it for basically no credit. They're doing it for the sake of knowing it and how important it is to know it. Absolutely. All right, so step one, you got it. All right, step two, you're going to have them go through their test, answer everything they starred without help. So they said they knew it, prove it to me. That's the next step. Step three, go ahead and get out your notes, get out your study guides, cheat sheets, and answer all the things you put a question on. Go ahead and retrieve that. And through that struggle to retrieve, go ahead and confirm that you were either half right or you missed it completely. So now you're going to go back through your test to all of your question marks. You're going to get the answer and you're going to put it right down there. You're going to confirm it and say, oh, that's what that was. You'll remember it for longer. The very last step is one we almost always forget, but it's very important, is to go back and verify that, in fact, all the stars are correct according to my notes, according to my slides, my documents from you. That is the four-step process on how to engage on the learner end with your own learning for self-regulation, accountability, metacognition. What I'll do next is I'll show you how to combine those last two, the weekly mix-up and the 4 steps of metacognition, okay? This actually happened Monday of this week in our undergraduate class for teachers who want to teach math, science, and agriculture in the future, okay? This is what we did. We gave them this quiz. This quiz here has important stuff that we say they must know, okay? First thing they do is they star what they know, and this is actually a real response that I've animated for you. They question mark what they don't know. We have now quizzed things we're learning today, things we're learning last week, and then finally, things they learned or were supposed to learn last semester. And I'll tell you what, they do not know the 5 E's from memory. And guess what? It is the foundational way we teach math and science. It is the 5E lesson plan model. They don't know it. And they were able to tell us that through a no stakes quiz. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to act upon that and we're going to help them learn it because it's important. They were supposed to know it last semester. They don't know it. And we now know that and we can take action because they need to learn how to do that before they go into their own classroom to become the dynamic and enthusiastic and outstanding math science teachers that we need, because we don't have a lot of those folks in K-12. We need them. So it was a really cool bonding moment, actually, where we said, hey, let's just stop and let's revisit. Y'all want to just do a little quick lesson on 5E? When we come in on Wednesday, they were like, thank goodness. Because they were all sitting there thinking they had to just keep pretending that they knew something. And we can cut all that out. That's an environment thing, man. That's like a relationship thing, you know, that's the benefits these sort of dividends of doing this stuff. All right. So that's a real example. And quizzing in a combination of weekly mix-up with the 4 steps to metacognition. Okay. Pretty cool, right? Yeah. So we actually follow up with this quiz with our card sets ourselves. So I think it was Kim who said something about index cards. This is how we do it. We have 3 card stacks. The terms that they need to know go on the bottom, and they sort them depending on where they are. So after they do their weekly mix-up, we then have them take their cards out and resort them based on their self-analysis. So if they got it, then they got it. That's great. If they're getting it, they can move a card over into the getting it stack. And if they still don't have a clue, but they're gonna get it, then they can put it in their gonna get it stack. And it's important to me that it says gonna get it, like real country and cute, right? Because this stuff is very nerve-wracking to come to college and to be quizzed, right? So we actually inculcate the vibe and feeling about how you're going to get there. It's fine by using the actual phrasing on the cards. So this is the follow-up to the weekly mix-up and the metacognitive strategy. So we see people move their cards across the semester at different paces, different orders, different times, and they just remember different stuff at different times. But by the end, the ultimate goal is get everybody's cards in the got it stack. We use this for undergrads. We use this for doctoral students. It works. And guess what? They keep stuff that we said was important for longer. Okay. So we'll pause there if you've got any kind of questions on how to take this and then move it into something beyond it, like the card stacks. And it's also cool when the students start getting excited when they move the card. They're like, I got it, man. And they start like high-fiving and stuff. It really happens. I'm telling you, it's not some sort of pie in the sky type thing. Yeah, go ahead, Sasha.
So I love this in the self-assessment and like putting into reality what you actually know. So specifically with the index cards, do you when do you do that in class? Like, does each student have their own set of index cards and it's like it's index card time, guys? Or
Yes, you are exactly right. I want to back up though on this idea of putting into reality what you actually know. That phrase right there from you was just beautiful, right? Putting into reality what you actually know. That is great for you, for the student. Okay, so let's just write that down somewhere. That was great. But secondly, yes, we actually start the semester with a card stack system. They actually make the card stacks. They actually make their 3 title cards, and then we hand them out a bunch of index cards to fuel the whole semester. What we actually find often is that students build cards on their own in addition to the ones that I say are non-negotiable, because they get into it and then they get these giant card sets, and it's almost like too much. But I've got 5 or 7 things per class I teach that you must know. And we actually quiz those out. Now, you want to add your own as you go. That's great. Like little sidebar kind of terms that pop up that you really found interesting. That's totally doable too. But then, no, this is a routine that they come to know after a few weeks is just totally normal, right? But you would need to teach them how to do it and explain why you're doing it so that it doesn't become this frivolous sort of thing that nobody really checks on. So that's a great contribution to the discussion from you. Thank you. Okay, so we follow up the weekly mix-up and the metacog with a extra layer where they're sorting and coming to know the reality of what they do know. As Sasha said, that's great. Okay, and then we see that you can adapt this any way you want to. My wife, who's the assistant director of the Writing Center, soon to be Dr. Carrie Carter, whoop whoop, yeah. She actually uses this. She's teaching undergraduate freshman writing, and she has the students fill this out, self-assess, and then there's a question or comment section at the bottom. And notice what the student said there. It says, is there an easy way to have to remember ethos, pathos, and logos? Yeah, Aristotelian logic. You know what? How about the next lesson, I go ahead and I help you learn how to do that. Yeah, isn't that great? The communication that's involved here between teacher and student is just outstanding. And so I think we did have a hand up. It was by Fayisa. I want to make sure you don't get left out. So she uses this, and we notice that students, every time they fill it out, they can actually move their score over. So sometimes the cards are too clunky. Sometimes the cards are, it's not feasible. So you just do it on this system. Actually, you could keep a digital record of this if you want to do it that way. Just have them do an Excel sheet. It says, got it, getting it, gonna get it. Or it's check, check plus, check minus. I don't know, man. I mean, come up with whatever you want to do. The point is they move to the right or to the left, whatever the top score is over time. That's what's cool about it. Okay. All right. So here's the last bit of our session. Ultimately, what is all this going to get our students? Okay. It's going to help them get a mental model. This is a direct quote from Make It Stick. What is a mental model? I want you to picture the night sky in your head and the constellations you see. That's what our heads look like inside. It's all connected or isn't. And when we can start making more connections, we build what we call mental models. So I'm going to give you a quote to read, okay, from Make It Stick. This is what we're building through doing all this retrieval. This is the benefit of doing it, okay? So we are trying to strengthen their constellation of skills. That's a phrase directly from Make It Stick as well, the constellation of skills. All of this retrieval is going to get us that in the end. And that's when you have learning that stays and learning that goes forward. Okay. So yeah, why do all this retrieval? It's to get the mental model. That's what you want. The expert has a mental model that they can access at any time. And that's why they look so calm and easy when they do what they do, whether it's fighter pilots, chess masters, or the brilliant teacher who can shift and move. And so let's do our retrieval, okay? Can anybody jump on the mic and see how many they can retrieve without looking? Okay, we got 6. You just learned them. How many can you get? Or you could try to type them without looking. All 6. How many can you get? And it is a low stakes, no stakes opportunity. I have no points to get. You came here on your own. Okay, got look, we got them going in the chat. Let's see what we get. 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 6 from memory from Katie Gruber. Hey, Katie. Metacog, yep. Excellent. Weekly Mixup. Awesome. All right, guys, let's do our reveal here. Missed one, yeah. Oh, hey, you're dealing with a toddler, you get a break, free pass for sure. Okay, cool. All right, guys, here are your strategies once more. We got the 2 things. The brain dump, too long, didn't read it, even though I did. Flip it and reverse it. The weekly mix up. And finally, 4 steps of metacognition. Our goal is to have you see how easy these are to implement, how they cost nothing, not even time. But moreover, I want to challenge you to think about how you can combine and mix and improvise these strategies to fast track your students to mastery, okay? We will end with my favorite quote from Powerful Teaching. And it is as follows. We must stop driving instruction with anecdotes and fads. We must stop reinventing the wheel. Instead, it's our responsibility to ask for evidence. Evidence for which strategies are effective, not just which strategies are popular. And the jury has decided that retrieval works, and it works so much better than what we think works, like cramming and rereading. It just works. The evidence is overwhelming. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is your crash course in science of learning, and really appreciate you. And we've got this last 10 minutes to take any questions you've got at all. We'll answer them directly. And if I don't know the answer, then I'll just tell you I don't know. So thank you so much, and let's open for some questions. Please get you a copy of Powerful Teaching. Yes, yes, it is so good. All right, what you got? Questions for me or for anybody?
Hi.
Hey, Rebecca.
I'm Becky. So I'm still a little confused about the cards. So you have in mind like 5 to 7 things. Is that how is it that they come to be on cards?
Yeah,
for them to sort into the piles.
Yeah, we actually will tell them, like I think it was Sasha said, hey, it's card time. Hey, let's build our cards. One of the last things we do in our weekend cohort classes is on, gosh, we go Friday night, 5 to 9, Saturday, 8 to 5. So we're all fried by the end. So we use the last 30 minutes to, quote, build new cards. We actually do two ways. I give them terms that are non-negotiable, and we actually build the card directly, which means you're encoding the information through writing. And then we actually open the floor for people who want to make a case to make a card. So they actually say, no, I think this should be a card. And we actually debate that out, right? So it's an actual classroom routine where they build the cards over time, and then we quiz them all the time.
So it's from what goes on in the class during that time, and this happens at the end, or it happens at the beginning for the last time?
Again, you can mix it up any way you want to.
Okay.
Whatever's not going to cause you to be distracted and sort of intrusive into the learning. They may have to build a card between Monday and the next Wednesday class, and then they can look on Friday at their stack or something like that. Yeah, the logistics of it are really kind of up to us, and the time we have, the schedule that we have, that kind of stuff.
And so is there anything, are they discussing with other people that to make sure that they understand it, or they're just like putting in piles?
Yeah, we use the cards after we quiz, right? After we do retrieval. So once they retrieve and then they look at kind of what they really actually know or don't know, they'll actually bring their card stacks out and reassess where they're at. Yeah, sometimes actually they forget stuff that they said earlier that they in fact, quote, got. And in fact, they don't have it anymore. So they actually move their stack. They move their card to the other stack.
Okay. So they keep the cards in these stacks throughout maybe the semester, for example.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they revisit them periodically.
If you can team up to that next teacher that moves on to that. I think you're in science. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were in a book club together. So you're moving on to that next science class. You can say, hey, by the way, here were the 5 terms that we quizzed. Go ahead and take them on to the next class. Or you may feel that that's not going to work somehow. But for us, we've decided that these are non-negotiable terms that you must be able to know from memory. And now that can carry over in a vertical way through a program, which is what we do. But it's not necessarily a must do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to
Okay.
kind of
All right.
tag on
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, thanks.
So,
Go ahead,
You know,
Jim.
our students they love cramming, and they're good at it.
Yeah. And
So
these
aren't cram cards, right? They're not cram cards. This is a concept. There's nothing on the back. It's not like a flip, right? It's just
They are not cards.
Essential dogma. I know central dogma. Boom. It's just blank and okay. Yeah.
These are retrieval cards that we said at the beginning, you must know these things by the end, and we're going to give you the time and practice to know them. And in your card sets, you're actually going to self-evaluate so that you make sure that you in fact do know them. And we're talking about key items, or it might even be like, for example, if you notice our quiz, it said identify the Hall of Famers. It's very important to us in our doctoral program that you know the heavy hitters in the field of assessment, in the field of school improvement. So you're going to need to retrieve them all. And actually, I put in distractors every time I quiz it to see if they can catch it, because I'm not playing around. That's the whole bottom line here, is that what I'm teaching needs to be remembered. And this is the way they remember more stuff, you know? So they're not cram cards. And actually, I love the idea of them not being what you call a cram card. The phrasing is really neat. This is the anti-cram class. You know?
Yeah, it's not the cram. You know, where they're allowed to take one index card in, you know, and it's got, you know,
no, they would have none of those helping aids until they went through and tried it, and then you reveal the card to yourself to correct yourself. That's the key. It is in the struggle to remember that you remember it for longer. That's one of the number one takeaways from the 4 books we previewed there at the beginning: Make It Stick, Small Teaching, How Humans Learn, and then lastly, Powerful Teaching.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. last minute here, guys, I will type in to the chat box a bunch of those tech tools that I kind of rattled off for you. And then also we can ensure that if you do want the slides so you can have everything, then you can have that from Dr. Otto. And we are always grateful for Dr. Otto and Dr. Brenthrop and everybody over at LTITC. I'm a big fan. In fact, if I had a big foam finger that said LTITC on it, I would wear it and wave it, because I love them so much over there and what they're all about. So thank you for the time to do this. I got another session coming up in October. It's about expertise in teaching, which is another really important subject and very tough to define. What does an expert in teaching look like? It's very foggy, if you will. So hang out with me again sometime. And thank you, guys. I'll stay on here for a few minutes if you need anything. But I'm about to type in the chat all the names of those tech tools. Okay. All right. Thank you.